Some corrupt cops commit crimes so heinous that even they don't expect the full weight of the law to come crashing down. But when the judge delivers a life sentence, the reality hits like a freight train. Watch as this officer's confidence turns into sheer terror when he realizes he got called out by none other than the judge.
I said that originally, but they told me that the judge don't make the rules here. That was the quote that
They thought they were untouchable, hiding behind a badge and abusing their power. But when the truth came out, the courtroom became their worst nightmare. From shocking confessions to judges who refused to back down, these corrupt cops faced the justice they never saw coming. In November 2024, in an online conference, Mr. Jaden Lee's probation was being discussed when he revealed something shocking that his probation officer had said, and in reality, his entire probation had not been going correctly.
Today is a day set for review, and according to Miss, I don't never know her name because she don't put her name on here. According to probation, your discharge date is May the 2nd. You were placed on a 12-month probationary period, and I placed you on probation on, May 2nd of this year, 24. So this is your first review. This is the halfway point. However, you're not quite finished. So this says that you did pay the restitution in full.
The situation would start calm, but an insane statement made later would trigger the judge.
This says the restitution of $30,000 was paid in full. You completed the theft awareness class. You have done some you did choices.
Yes, ma'am.
Through eBay, and then you've completed 8 of the 10 gamblers counseling. Well, let's see.
Nope.
That she's saying 2 different things. How many gamblers counseling is left?
I finished all 10.
Oh, you did?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. When did you finish? Because she just sent me this.
This man was taking his probation seriously, but you'll find out that his probation officer was the problem in this situation.
This would have been last week on, I believe Friday was the last day. I remember she said she was leaving the office Thursday. So Mr. Mooney was trying to get in contact with her, I believe, to email her to let her know that I was completed. But he assured her that I will be finished before this court date.
Okay, let me see. What about count 2? You owe $510 on count 2.
That's the only thing that I haven't completed, Your Honor.
Okay, all right. Well, then don't worry about calling her, Mr. Flanagan. So let's do this. How long do you think it'll take for you to complete or pay the $510?
I started a new job within 2 days. So my first paycheck within basically 2 weeks, I'll be able to pay it.
You gonna give us all your money? I don't know how much the check is. Don't give me the saying it's all your money. I mean,
it's literally been all my money. So.
Right. But I can give you a couple of months if you want a couple of extra months. I can give you a couple of months.
The judge was kind and cooperative, but when she found out what the probation officer had said, she would lose her cool, and for good reason.
I mean, yeah, that will work better, absolutely. Whichever one works.
All right. I mean, 'cause today is just the halfway point, so you're not technically scheduled to be discharged from probation. The 12 months, you're not scheduled until May 2nd. I could give you a date in late January if that'll be better for you.
Yes, ma'am. That'll work.
Mr. Miles, is that acceptable?
It is acceptable, Your Honor. It's possible I might be out of the country, but I'd be able to get another attorney to stand in for the review.
All right. And also, if he completes it, so let me give a date. I'll give a date first. And then if he completes it and pays the money, you could send an email to Mr. Flanagan, and I can discharge him without you coming.
Okay, that sounds great.
All right, so I'll put it on the docket for January the Let's put it on the docket for February 3rd, that first Monday in February. I'll put it on the docket for February 3rd. And then that way we could confirm with Ms. Collins that you've completed those classes or the counseling, and then you can pay the $510. If you've done so, counsel, you can just submit an email and I can confirm it with the probation, and then I can discharge them without appearance. So we'll put it on the docket for a discharge.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, Mayor.
All right, you're welcome. So February 3rd, Mr. Flanagan, let's put it on the docket for, well, no, not 9:45, because that will denote money. That'll denote money only. Just put it on for the regular time, 10 o'clock, and then we'll see where we are.
Now pay attention, because this is when things start to get heated.
Excuse me, Brian. Miss Bryant. So up until this point, I'm still expected to check in regularly and do the normal probation process until January.
What do you mean by that? Tell me what do you do? What's the normal probation process?
Well, because originally they were telling me that once I came into this review, I could have the potential to be discharged from the probation since I had did all the classes and everything like that.
So here,
right now,
I'm gonna interrupt you, Mr. Lee. You're on a non-reporting probation anyway. So if they've had you reporting monthly,
yeah,
you didn't have to do that.
I said that originally, but they told me that the judge don't make the rules here. That was
The judge doesn't make the rules is a wild statement.
the quote that they.
Who told you that? Oh, hold on. Mr. Flanagan, call Mr. Farmer right now. Call him right now. Ooh,
Yes.
it's gonna be a great day. Call him right now. I need you to tell us who told you that. Call them right now. Matter of fact, you can call Mr. Wade too. Call them right now. Because I'm about to. Yes. I like
Yes,
you, Mr. Lee. I like you. You didn't even mean to tell on them, but you did.
Yeah, I didn't. It's Miss Bryson. She's no longer there anymore. That was the former probation officer that
Well,
I had.
let me make sure they have a meeting with probation while you on here. Let's make sure they have a meeting with the probation, because if I ever hear somebody say that again, I'm gonna hold them in contempt.
Too bad she wasn't there anymore, because she would definitely get fired if she was. Part of me wishes she were, because she deserves to be held accountable for that statement.
Understood.
Yeah, but we gonna do this right now. Oh, I'm so excited. This turned out to be a great Tuesday. But you did not have to report, Mr. Lee. You were not supposed to be reporting on a monthly basis, and we getting ready to nip that in the bud right now. I'm so excited for my future and yours. So to answer your question, you do not have to report. Now, what you have to do is let us know when you finish those classes, the counseling. So you can in fact have them send it to Mr. Flanagan. But I want you to stay on here so Mr. Farmer can hear it from you. I'm gonna tell him what you said, and then I'm gonna ask you, did you say that in front of the supervisor, so we can make sure that no other probation officer ever tells anybody else that I don't make the rules. I am the rule. I mean, I don't even understand what. Yeah.
I thought so. I thought so too.
You should have told him that, and then you should have just not shown up. Nothing would have happened to you. Nothing.
I just was nervous. I didn't want to get violated. I was just trying to follow the rules.
You said Mr. Farmer is logging in right now?
Yes, Your Honor.
He's not logging in. He must not have been at his computer.
What she said was nothing short of insane.
And it is correct that Miss Bryson is no longer with. That could be part of the reason she's not here, because she thought the judge didn't make the rules. I don't know why she's not here anymore.
Yeah.
So, Your Honor, my understanding is that the requirements of Mr. Lee are that he complete the payment of $510 and provide proof that he's completed the Gamblers Counseling classes.
Right, and then I'm going to discharge him without him ever having to go see probation again. See how that works? Because I do make the rules, Mr. Lee.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. I'm just going to have to let him see the tape, because I'm not going to hold you here. He didn't log right in. And so I'm not going to hold you. But you don't have to report to them. So I did notice on the register of action there was a report day. Oh, maybe you just had a report day.
Yeah, I had one the other day. That it's been monthly, and then I'll go do the drug screen as well. Every
drug
month.
screen?
They've been having me do a drug screen. I was like, I don't even smoke, or my case had nothing to do with anything, drug related, but I've been doing the drug screen every month.
Mr. Lee, let me apologize on behalf of the court. And I'm thankful that Miss Bryson no longer works here, because she might have got fired today.
Understood.
So you do not have to drug test.
This judge is an amazing example of how people with authority should be. Miss Bryson ought to learn a thing or two from her.
My order specifically says no urinalysis was ordered. And so what I'm going to do is refund you any money that you have paid for your drug screens. So where were you testing?
It was a Rochester Hills location. I forget the name of it, but it was like a few minutes from my house. I went there, I believe twice when I couldn't make it all the way to Detroit within the day, so I would go there. So I only did that like twice. It was like $40 total there, and then the other time they would make me come out to the court to do it.
You said the other times, so you have tested every month since I put you on probation?
Yes, ma'am, every month.
That's a mess. Okay. Oh, that's a mess. Okay, what I'm going to do is I am going to deduct. Come on screen, Mr. Farmer. Good morning. Mr. Farmer, who is just, he is.
Good morning, Your Honor.
He is justice. Every time he come on here, I feel like justice is behind him. Mr. Farmer, this is Mr. Lee. Mr. Lee, say hi to Mr. Farmer.
How you doing, Mr. Farmer?
Supervisor Farmer should have done something about Mr. Lee's situation, being a person of authority, but it comes to show us that corruption starts from the top.
How you doing?
Mr. Farmer, Mr. Lee used to be supervised by someone who no longer works here, so that's good, because they might have got fired today if they still worked here. Miss Bryson. Miss Bryson told Mr. Lee, who she made report to probation every month, that I don't make the rules. He told her it's a non-reporting probation. Miss Bryson told him the judge don't make the rules, we make the rules. Not only did she have him reporting to probation, she has had this man drug screening every month when my order specifically says no urinalysis ordered. What I called you on here for is because she no longer works here. In your next meeting, just make sure nobody ever tells one of my probationers that, because that might get them held in contempt of court, because that doesn't even make sense. And I
understand.
You know that don't make sense. You would, okay. So what I am going to do, Mr. Lee said he tested at the court 4 times, and you tested in Bloomfield 2 times?
Yeah, Rochester Hills, yeah.
Oh, Rochester Hills. So, Mr. Flanagan, what I am going to do is deduct. I'm just going to give him $150 credit.
That is brilliant professionalism displayed by the judge. Mr. Lee deserved compensation. We need more judges like her.
For his inconvenience and his time. And then that will leave him a balance instead of the 510. Y'all know I gotta subtract the old-fashioned way. So hold on. I'm gonna cross off the 5. I'm gonna make it a 4. I'm gonna put my little 1 over there. They don't teach the kids how to do that anymore. 11 minus 5.
I doubt Mr. Farmer was actually listening to something, because his internet was quite terrible, as you'd see next. Hopefully he heard something useful, so a situation like this doesn't happen again.
I've never had a probation officer say that before, so I think you got a good team, but that made me nervous. I think Mr. Farmer froze. He did. All right. Well, he used to be a probation officer. Now he's the supervisor. So that was some bad advice. That was some bad instructions. And like I said, she doesn't work here anymore. And if she did today, she was probably gonna either be fired or held in contempt of court. So I'm glad we didn't have to cross that bridge. Thank you, Mr. Farmer, and
No
for
problem,
coming
ma'am.
on. Thank you so much, Mr. Lee. Thank you for sharing that information. And I again apologize for the inconvenience. You did not have to do those things, so I appreciate it. And then I'll either see you on the 3rd or we'll do your discharge when I get the information. Okay?
Okay,
Your Honor.
thank you.
One
Yes.
question, Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
I'm just looking at my notes, and I have that the order was for a delayed sentence.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
he'll get the delayed sentence.
Okay, great.
Yes. So if he finishes, he's going to finish well within the 12 months, and I'll give him the delayed sentence. So it will be a dismissal, and a removal of the conviction from your record once you pay the balance and give us the proof that you completed that counseling.
Okay, all
Okay,
right.
we'll do.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. You're welcome, gentlemen. Have a great day. Stay safe.
Miss Bryson had left the job, so nothing could be done about her. But Mr. Farmer should hold himself accountable for what had happened because Miss Bryson had done this under his nose. And if he had any self-respect, he would make sure nothing like this ever happens again. Up next, we have a corrupt judge who was stating nonsense without anything actually backing up what he said. He was quickly humbled.
Whether or not an individual meets the definition of disability should not demand extensive analysis.
In December 2024, in an online meeting, a judge, Jeffrey Moreland in Currituck County, North Carolina, claimed that the Americans with Disabilities Act entitled him to require proof of disabilities and/or medical support for accommodation requests. When he was challenged to show what authority he was alleging, he choked on the bench.
I think that we need for a medical documentation is a letter that tells us what's the nature of the impairment, that identifies the major bodily functions or life activity that's limited as a result of the impairment. How does that impairment affect each major life activity specified above? And to what extent does the illness or condition limit that major life activity? What mitigation measures does the medical professional recommend? And how long does the medical professional anticipate these modifications to be required? And so this appears to be insufficient. Do you want to tell me anything about that?
Here he was reading from a form and not from the ADA, because the ADA doesn't require you to submit medical documentation for accommodation.
28 CFR 35.101, Title II of the ADA says that whether or not an individual meets the definition of disability should not demand extensive analysis. And there is no requirement in Title II for medical documentation to support a request for accommodations. And under 28 CFR 35.164, the court actually has a duty when they receive a request for accommodations to respond in a certain way, to examine all the resources they have available, and if they're going to deny, to either claim fundamental alteration or undue burden. That has not been done in this case at all, and they're also to respond in writing, but that hasn't been done either. But as far as the medical documentation, there's no authorization in the ADA for Title II covered entity to require documentation. There's an 11th Circuit case called Sugg versus City of Sunrise that came out 2022, and it's a Title I ADA case, which is employer-employee, and the appeals court said Sugg, which was the employee, was entitled to have his testimony heard as a triable fact for whether or not he was disabled. And the employer was saying, well, his testimony was self-serving and we can ask for doctor's documentation. But the appeals court in that case said, you're supposed to give him weight when he says, I have a disability. So when you say it's insufficient, I don't know of any case law or ADA final rule implementation that supports having a requirement that a medical professional document that a disability exists. And Dr. did say that the accommodations that were requested were reasonable. So
I understand, and I think we just have a disagreement on what it is I'm allowed to request, and we have disagreements all the time in court, and if we disagree, you can file whatever you need to file for that.
The man was owning the judge. I find it unbelievable that a judge whose sole purpose is to make decisions based on the law was being educated by a citizen.
But to me, it appears that Mr. and I hope I don't pronounce this wrong. Is it Dr. Deho?
Dr.
It appears he's just rubber stamped your motion, essentially. And so I am going to find that it's insufficient. And I will give you a chance to present more sufficient medical documentation if you wish. But without that, I am not inclined to modify the way that we operate. Okay?
So what's
send
your
out an order in writing, and we will give you a copy of that, okay?
what's your authority for requiring medical documentation?
He mentioned the man's motion being rubber stamped, but actually he hadn't even filed a motion. So this man was on some nonsense.
My authority on requesting it is Title II.
Title II of the ADA, what section? I've been doing this for almost
That's
8
correct.
years.
So I have spoken with our general counsel, and what I find very dispositive is we actually don't have a policy on it, but the state of Vermont has a published policy, and that is where I looked at to guide me through this. And in speaking with my general counsel and looking at the Vermont policy, it appears to be all this is valid case law. And so that's fine if you don't agree with me. I'll send my order, and you're welcome to appeal it to whatever entity you would like, okay?
So you're saying you checked with the state of Vermont, but I still don't have an authority that says you can require or even request.
I am saying that I found their policy helpful, and when I researched the case law and I spoke to my general counsel, I found a lot of cases, including Mazzano v. 2nd Judicial District Court in Nevada, which you were the advocate in, and found that you filed those motions in bad faith and were frivolous. And so in light of that, I'm going to deny this. I will send you a copy of that order, and I'm going to direct the clerk to end this.
Next, the corrupt cop convicted of a brutal crime walks into court expecting a slap on the wrist, only to be hit with a sentence so severe he nearly collapses.
You struck your wife, you murdered her, and then you staged her body in the bathtub.
Corrupt cops rarely get caught for their evil deeds, but when they do, it's worth watching, which is exactly what happened when this officer was brought to court on extremely disturbing charges.
I'm sorry to inform you, but your wife is passed, sir.
In 2021, ex-police officer Daniel Howard called 911 to say that his 52-year-old wife Kendi had met a quite tragic end. However, as soon as the police arrived, they found something even more alarming.
Come on out, sir. Over here, come on.
I initially talked to Mr. Howard outside the front door, and then I walked past him into the house.
Stay up here, okay?
Looked around the living room, didn't see her, and I didn't remember exactly where she was supposed to be, so I went back out. Went back upstairs and found her.
And can you describe what you saw in the bathroom?
I saw a woman naked in the bathtub with an apparent tongue. There was blood around her coming out of her mouth.
According to the officer, Kendi's final moments were nothing short of heartbreaking. But shockingly enough, the one responsible was still in the same room.
Yes, there was a gun laying to the right of her in the water, and there was the water was tinted red. Once her pulse was checked, no pulse was found by Deputy 9. Called for medical, and then they came in and announced that she was deceased. And then we cleared the residence upstairs to make sure no one else was in the house.
I'm sorry to inform you, but your wife is passed, sir. Hey, Dan. Hey, Dan. Is there anyone that we can call for you? Anyone that is good attempts to my kids? Oh my God. Do it. Is there anyone we can call to give you some support or anything like that? Any family that...
While it was strange that Howard did not notice a forgot despite being a cop, his telltale crocodile tears revealed much about how dark his mind had become.
I'm not that monster, I assure you, that people portrayed me to be. Kenny and I had 28 years together and raised a family, had mostly a good marriage and a good life. I worked away from home all the time and I was gone, and that was probably the gist of most of my problems, that I was gone. But I'm not that animal that they portrayed me to be, and that monster. And I couldn't have been that monster for 28 years and not be here before the court, waiting for him.
Howard always had a bad reputation. He resigned from the police force due to theft charges, served time in jail for harassment, and was eventually booked as a fugitive.
It is not my intention to anger the court or disrespect the process that I used to believe in and work for. But Your Honor is about to sentence an innocent man to prison. And I love my wife, and I miss her. And my stepdaughter, Brooke, who I raised since an infant, and her daughter, Kinley, that I helped raise for 5 years when we took them into our house. And I will miss them very much. I do miss them. Words cannot describe the pain that I feel for that.
When the police began their investigation, they discovered that Kendi's fatal wound was not the result of suicide. In fact, all evidence pointed to her beloved husband.
Stand before you, shell of a man used to be. Hell, I don't even have a shell left. My wife took her life. My will to live went down significantly. And when the jury found me guilty of crimes I didn't commit, it went down even further. Mr. Johnson touched on this. I'd appreciate the court taking into consideration my service to the country as a Marine.
Howard was such a monster that he continued to lie to the judge and disrespected Kendi's memory by still shifting the blame to her.
To the state of Idaho for over 20 years. In which I was decorated multiple times for saving lives, not taking them. For service to the community through coaching football and baseball for many years and being a 4-H leader for many years. I volunteered to help the seniors in the community north of me. Every time there was a windstorm, I'd cut trees from the driveway, from around the house. I volunteered a lot. And to the frustration of my wife sometimes, because I was gone even more away from home. And I didn't ask those people to write letters into the court because I didn't want to burden them. So that's why I'm telling you that now.
Howard's history of harassment and other crimes made it clear that he was lying about being a good cop who saved lives.
I've successfully completed probation before, like Mr. Johnson has said, and I can successfully complete probation for all the future, I assure you. I just want to reiterate that I still love Kendi's side of the family, Janie, Wendell, Brian. I still love my stepdaughter. I miss them very much. My dad, John, my sister, Diane. I will miss them very much.
Thank you, Mr. Howard.
Howard's lies were infuriating but persistent, as though he thought him being a cop at one point in his career still put him above all.
We're here for sentencing on a conviction of second-degree murder and a conviction of domestic violence, a felony. And what the jury found, Mr. Howard, is that you murdered your wife. Now, why they found it a second-degree murder versus first-degree was, I'm not there in the jury room, but they didn't find beyond a reasonable doubt the one element of premeditation. They found specifically, it was part of the charging documents and part of the jury instructions, that you asphyxiated your wife, that you strangled her, that you killed her. And so the state has argued a lot about, we don't know exactly what happened that night, how she obtained the bruising, the burn, the broken jaw.
While Howard had let go of any humanity left in him, there were still some in the room who could see through his terrible facade.
The attorney disputes the state's version of how she got those injuries. We don't know for sure. But what we know, beyond a reasonable doubt, is that you strangled your wife, you murdered her, and then you staged her body in the bathtub, shot her through the mouth, and often in horrible crimes like this, everybody wants to know why, and often we don't know why, and I can't get inside your brain, but the pretty clear evidence, I agree with the state, is that this was due to, jealousy, greed, pride, anger, revenge, some combination of that.
As per reports, Kennedy decided to leave Howard because of what he had become. However, he wasn't used to people reacting to his crimes. And due to the shared assets, he let greed take over, ultimately planning and executing his own wife's demise.
And you killed in a brutal manner. And as I think about it, when you killed your wife, you didn't just kill your wife. You killed a mother, you killed a grandmother, you killed a sister, you killed a daughter, you killed a coworker, you killed somebody who brought a lot of life and light. This is without the state proving necessarily, and they don't have to, without them proving exactly how she received what they describe as this beating, without them proving exactly how she ended up with a body so badly bruised.
But Howard didn't only stop at silencing her. His sick mind led him to do unimaginable things to the victim after committing this heinous crime.
We know you killed your wife, you killed her, and you staged her to look like a suicide. We don't have to know the answers to all those other things to understand this was a heinous. From my view of the evidence and from what came out, despite your efforts at the time to appear emotional and sad and distraught, it's clear to me that you're a remorseless killer. And I don't say that lightly. I don't say that lightly at all, because we don't like to think that anybody would be like that. But you're not sorry, and I don't. The way you treated her family, the way you treated your own family, your own stepdaughter, your granddaughter, with a cold and callous contempt after the murder, it belies your argument to me today that you love these people and that you're sorry.
The judge was correct when he called out Howard, because when given the opportunity to speak, he never apologized. He did not apologize or admit he made a mistake. Instead, he attempted to justify himself as a good person, demonstrating that he had no remorse for his actions.
About this after the fact, your behavior towards her was contemptuous and unkind. And I'm not sentencing you for that. There's a lot of stuff that came in at the trial as to how you treated people after the fact, and how you treated your stepdaughter after the fact, and not allowing your granddaughter to get items that were meaningful and significant. But that's not why you're being sentenced today. But that does point to the remorse, the lack of remorse, the lack of caring, and just the callous disregard that you had for Kendi and how her death affected those around her. The goals of sentencing include the primary consideration of the protection of society, followed by the possibility of risk reduction through rehabilitation, deterrence of the individual and the public generally, and punishment or retribution for wrongdoing and the impact on the victim.
No one could imagine such an inhumane act, but Howard dared to commit it to his own wife, with whom he had spent half of his life.
In terms of protection of society, I mean, obviously society has to be protected from somebody who's willing to commit the ultimate crime of murder. If they feel threatened, you didn't even feel threatened. This is over, again, most likely, elements of greed and anger and revenge.
People like Howard don't deserve rehabilitation or a chance at redemption, and how he replied next shows that.
I don't know how to say this without just sounding mean, but I mean, this is who you are. When I read the PSIs, I read that, and these are, obviously the PSI included a lot of reports, but these are actual quotes you gave to law enforcement 10 years ago. The first one I got, page 79 of 162, when this is your neighbor who you were angry with. Now this is him. I said these were quotes from you. This isn't a quote from you. This is what he says you told him. Wood claimed Daniel Howard yelled at him, "I don't know where you are at, but I'm going to find you and kill you. You fucked my life. When you least expect it, I will find you."
There was no truth to Howard's assertions that he was a heroic police officer who saved lives. With evidence in hand, the judge wasted no time exposing the falsehoods.
Confronted about this, among a number of things you said, this is a text you sent to another individual. Quote, "I used incredible restraint because the weasel fuck is still breathing." So this is 10 years ago. You're talking about somebody is still alive because you used incredible restraint. You denied the statement and said the following, quote, "I don't know how many people I told that he's lucky that basically he's breathing because I choose to let him to. Dumb, I mean, I never threatened to kill him." But you were telling people he's breathing because you choose to let him to. You went on to say, and then this really jumped out at me because this is 10 years before you murdered your wife.
Given Howard's history of multiple arrests, it was easy for everyone to believe what the judge was saying. Howard was a sick individual who treated people terribly while he was in charge.
I look back at these guys and I'm thinking, you know these guys that get put in prison because they killed old ladies who they were around with? I'm like, you know what? Man, I understand a certain amount why now. Those thoughts going through my mind, yeah, it's not illegal to think that, let me tell you something. And so 10 years before, you're saying you understand guys killing their wives. That was page 29 of 162. This is on page 95 of 162. And this is the sergeant's comments as part of this interview with you about your behavior, the stalking behavior that they were investigating of your neighbor. It says, during this long pause, Daniel Howard attempted to look disgusted and in emotional pain, but appeared feigned, and he would abruptly recover to continue his interview.
Howard's expression throughout the verdict was unmistakably his own, as he showed no remorse for any of his crimes.
I read in the PSI writer experienced this as well. It says, numerous times during his interview, he appeared to be feigning emotions of sadness, but he would quickly change his demeanor and direct the conversation back to himself. And it's like, wow, this is what we saw at trial. This is what...
The judge was excellent and extremely professional at his job, making sure to confront and expose that liar in front of everyone.
I think there were times you tried to create emotions and were feigning them, but whatever. Your attorneys indicated that part of your disinterest was a trial strategy. At trial, your efforts the night that you murdered your wife to feign this sadness and these emotions, and it was pretty obvious to see through. But what jumped out at me is seeing that you did this 10 years ago.
Howard was so self-absorbed that he could never feel genuine emotion for causing anyone harm. He showed no remorse, not at the time of his wife's death or while sitting in court.
You're 58 years old. I don't see a lot of rehabilitation, sadly, in your future. Maybe, perhaps, but that's not a significant mitigating factor in sentencing you. Deterrence of the individual and the public generally, certainly I consider deterrence. People need to know. I almost rarely talk about deterring the public as a whole, because usually people don't pay attention to what's happening on a day-to-day basis here in court. But in your situation, people are. And the public needs to know that there is a severe punishment for your wife. And there's no sort of mitigation because the marriage is on the rocks or the wife.
Howard deserved severe punishment, not just for being a cold-hearted murderer, but he was also a big threat to the public. Monsters like him should always be behind bars.
Punishment or retribution for wrongdoing and the impact on the victim. As has been noted by our courts, a judge really only has complete information when it comes to retribution and deterrence, because those are based on the nature of the offense. I can't otherwise get inside your head. And there's a lot that went on in this case that we don't know. We don't know how, Kendi got the injuries on her feet, on her head, all over her body. There's a lot of those things we don't know. Is that you strangled or asphyxiated your wife, you murdered her, you staged her body to be found as if it were suicide. It's an outrageously egregious murder. And of course, all murder is, but this is particularly heinous in my view, having sat through the trial and seen all the evidence.
It was satisfying to see the judge call Howard the names he deserved. He truly was a heinous person who didn't deserve a single chance, not even for a second.
The nature and gravity of the offense standing alone is sufficient to justify a fixed life sentence. And that is what I'm going to impose here. I think Kendi's family deserves to have that closure. The crime is so egregious that I don't think you should be released at any point. There's just so little mitigation here. There's just really none. And so I do find that a fixed life sentence is appropriate for the count of murder second degree. On the domestic violence charge, I'll impose 10-year sentence and run it concurrent. I didn't even speak about that.
Finally, a cop who thought he was above the law is blindsided when his own colleagues testify against him.
I told Mr. Knoll not to do anything stupid, not to deceive me, not to define me. He did not like the consequences.
Plenty of drama unfolds in courtrooms, from crosstalk to abuse. But today, we'll show you some of the craziest and most unbelievable instances where officers finally faced justice. Like in this case, where an officer failed to get away with his wrongdoings before a righteous judge. On September 11, 2012, in Denver, Colorado, a judge had the most full and clear view of an officer abusing his powers and using excessive force and violence against a criminal during an actual case.
Investigation for false imprisonment, assault in the third degree, assault as a class 2 felony, and a misdemeanor charge as well in possession of drug paraphernalia. Thank you, sir.
Yes, ma'am. I'd like to object first.
As we can observe the defendant, Anthony Waller, in Judge Doris Bird's courtroom, the 4 deputies in the room seemed relaxed as Waller stood listening to the judge.
If I'm under investigation, I thought the investigation came first, then the rest came.
Right, but they have 3 days. The sheriff will have to serve him with the restraining order.
Just as the judge started answering Waller's objection, explaining that the city had the authority to hold Waller for 3 days before arresting him, Deputy Brady Lovinger suddenly took hold of Waller from behind and spun him around and slammed him into a large glass window. Later, even the judge had to file a grievance against Lovinger. Bird used the term heavy duty when later asked by internal affairs investigators to describe the attack. Her clerk described it as a bit excessive. Despite all these blaring details, it took over a year to reprimand Lovinger for his actions. Why is that? Brady Lovinger is the son of Bill Lovinger, who headed the sheriff's department from 2006 to 2010. So it's no surprise that Brady's daddy has got his back covered no matter what he seems to do. It's not every day that the law gets to be applied on our tyrants in blue, but on rare occasions it's other police officers who end up schooling some really low IQ cops.
I believe you're a rogue police officer, you're a bad police officer, and you don't deserve to be here.
The story began back in July 2015 when Michael Gelin was unlawfully and illegally arrested by Deputy Joshua Gallardo on the spot for filming an incident in public. This is something Gallardo thought he could easily get away with.
You're gonna record right now?
Yeah.
Turn it off, bro.
Why?
Because it's a violation of HIPAA law. He's actually in.
Pardon me?
You see anything around here right now? Did you see anything? Then please leave.
Why?
It's a violation.
Because right now we're working on this. Can you please leave the area?
Because he's a victim.
He's a victim right now. You want to leave?
I'm watching.
You want to leave the area?
I want to make sure he's
Then
being
please
taken
back
care
away
of.
to the sidewalk.
Then things escalated.
What's the rule? Is there a rule about
We
that?
don't want you right here if I'm attending
Okay,
him.
but you're not
I
doing
want you on the other
anything.
side of that hedge.
What are you doing?
Right now, I want you on the
You're
other
not attending him. What are you doing?
Sir, right now, I'm going to ask you again on the other side of that
Why?
hedge.
Why don't want to have to go to the other side?
You're going to get arrested for obstruction.
How am I obstruction?
Because I'm asking you to go to the other side and I don't want you approaching me.
I'm not approaching you. You approach me.
On the side of the hedge.
What about everybody else?
Somehow, Gallardo figured that this innocent black man, simply recording in public and practicing his First Amendment protected activity, is somehow obstructing justice. I still don't see by which angle he judges that Gelin was being a nuisance or an issue to the police at that time.
What about everybody else?
Other side of the hedge?
In the report filed on his arrest, Gallardo claims that if he only had moved back to the bushes. But the video clearly shows Gallardo's aggressive and demanding stance from the get-go. This was an event that Michael Gelin would not be able to easily forget and forgive. That is why many years later he was able to take his revenge. In September 2019, Officer Gallardo was being given a Deputy of the Month award, and Gelin took his best opportunity and said,
Joshua Gallardo?
It's my line.
It's good to see you again. You probably don't remember me, but you're the police officer who falsely arrested me 4 years ago. You lied on the police report. I believe you're a rogue police officer, you're a bad police officer, and you don't deserve to be here.
Keep in mind, folks, this was a meeting honoring Officer Gallardo. Instead, Commissioner Gellin made the rather unexpected and bold comments. Even the mayor had to chime in and take over.
We appreciate, as a whole, BSO and everything that you do for us.
But her attempts were of no use, as painting Gallardo as a good officer wasn't something that everyone was feeling at that moment in time. While this should have been the end of the matter for Gellin, he faced backlash and faced criticism for voicing his truth. Gellin took all of this negativity towards him and channeled it back onto the public when he made his first comments in public after this event.
I received messages of hate, threats. My family's safety has been compromised. I have to explain a mugshot for the rest of my life, as if I am a criminal, and I'm not a criminal.
What the naysayers of Gellin don't understand is how the actions and corruptness of some police officers leave a stain on people's records that no matter how hard they try cannot be removed. After all, we live in a world of labels that define us.
There is a difference between legitimate criticism of a deputy and using a platform of the city commission to embarrass, humiliate, and berate that deputy.
You chose to act in a manner that brought shame, shock, and disbelief.
When it comes to our police and how they treat residents and visitors of our city, I'd like to see some changes because every resident in Tamarack should feel safe and protected.
Despite the many different members who thought that Gellin used the opportunity to embarrass Officer Gallardo as wrong, but despite their opinions, Commissioner Mike Gellin was not reprimanded or faced any consequences. This is how some of America's finest also end up being the most corrupt. But wait till you see this next cop who thought he was all fine but not at all corrupt.
I'm not going to impose any further sanctions today.
On November 9, 2023, Jamie Knoll was arrested and had since been charged with 31 felonies. While Knoll seemed confident initially during the case, the judge's fierce attitude and demeanor quickly put off any sort of leverage he thought he could get.
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
Thank you very much. C01 2403 MC 634. That being in criminal contempt of Jamie Knoll, and 10 C01 2311 F5 297, that being State of Indiana versus Jamie Knoll. You may have a seat. Thank you. Mr. Wells, it's my understanding you have the gentleman here that conducted the search of the Knoll properties.
I do, Your Honor. Let the record reflect that on April 17th, after our original contempt hearing, I requested this court to consider appointing an independent person to do a complete, thorough search of both of all four of the houses that Mr. Knoll had control over. The court accommodated us and issued that order.
The investigator who was hired was then brought to the stand to answer questions.
Well, let's start with the first property that you talked about, which would be 3001 Old Tay Bridge in Jeffersonville. Is that the residence?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Were you able to locate any weapons in that home?
I did.
And what did you locate?
I located a Glock 26 pistol, semi-automatic pistol, a Sig Sauer 1911 semi-automatic pistol, and a shotgun.
Okay, let's be very specific on the first, the Glock 26. Did you also take a photograph of where that was located?
I did.
Okay, could we have a picture up on the screen which would be for the purpose of having you identify the area where that weapon was found, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And what room of the house is that?
That is a closet next to the laundry room. As you're looking at the photo, the laundry room is in the background of the photo, and the closet is the main part of the photo. Yes, sir.
Where was the gun located?
It was located...
Why don't you come off the stand if the court would permit and point to the photograph?
It was located with all these items that are shoved into the closet area here.
Was it on the floor? Was it in an item, or where was it?
Actually, at the time that I located it, I was pulling items out of the closet, and there was a nylon zip case, and I opened the nylon zip case to see what was in it, and that's when there was a gun box inside the zip case. I opened the gun box, and the gun and one magazine was in the box.
Was the weapon loaded or unloaded?
It was unloaded.
Could we show the second photograph, please? We're now showing a new photograph of a picture weapon. Can you describe that, please?
Yes, that's the Glock 26 pistol that I found, and that's the manner in which I found it. It was in the box, locked back, and the magazine was in the box also.
And that's the one that came from the closet?
Yes, sir.
Correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You can stand there because we're going to move to the next location. Did you also, as part of your search, in searching all of the house, went to the master bedroom?
I did.
Okay, and is that the photograph of a closet located in the master bedroom?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and was there a weapon located there?
There was.
And what was the weapon?
It was a 6-hour 1911 semi-automatic pistol.
Okay, and where was that weapon located?
It was located in this area of the floor. There was a pile of stuff.
You secured both these weapons, is that correct?
I did.
And you have them under lock and key now, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Assume that was a 45.
Yes, sir.
Judge, if we could have this marked and we'll offer that into evidence. And it's a photographs of all the pictures you took in all the properties.
Any objections, Mr. Hurdle?
No, Your Honor.
How you marking it, Paul?
You want State's Exhibit 1?
I'm sorry?
State's Exhibit 1.
Not State's Exhibit.
I mean, Defendant's Exhibit 1.
So Defendant's Exhibit 1 and then
Right,
yeah.
I'm sorry.
We're always the blue state. Mr. Brown, I'm going to hand you what's been marked for identification as Defendant's Exhibit 1 and ask you, can you identify that?
Yes, sir.
What is that?
That's a thumb drive that contains the photographs that I took from examining all 4 properties and also photographs of all items that I located.
Now the lawyer of the defendant, Jamie Knoll, chose to ask the investigators some of his own questions.
The 2 guns that you found, the Glock and the SIG,
Yes, sir.
were you told where to look for those?
No, sir.
Nobody told you to look in the master bedroom closet or the laundry room closet?
No, sir.
Did you have any contact with the defendant, his wife, or his daughter?
With his daughter.
Which daughter?
I think Grace.
What was the extent of that contact?
Just to advise that I was at the home.
Had you ever met any of them before?
No, sir.
Had you ever met the defendant before?
I do not specifically recall ever meeting the defendant.
Do you recall off the top of your head what vehicles you searched?
There was a Trans Am and a BMW at the residence. Then there were several what I would call classic cars, older cars, at the pole barn at 709 Old Salem Road.
Several, more than 10, less than 10?
I would say 10 to 12.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Nothing else.
Mr. Boyle, anything else?
I have no further questions. Thank you.
Mr. Brown, you retired in 2022.
Yes, sir.
Were you able to keep your service revolver or sidearm?
No, sir.
Do you have one you typically carry?
I do.
Do you know where it's at all times?
Yes, sir.
Did you always know where your service sidearm was? It's probably not a revolver, was it?
No, sir. Yes, sir, I did.
So to find a service revolver, I keep saying revolver, service firearm in a duty belt with other mags, that's not too far-fetched to believe that one would know where that was at, would it? Rhetorical question, you don't have to answer.
Yes, sir.
Just reinforces my decision to impose sanctions. The Remington shotgun, was it in a box when you found it?
No, sir.
Was it near a box? A Remington firearm box?
Not that I recall.
Did it still have tags on it?
No, sir.
Where was it at?
I located it in the basement, what I generally term the theater room.
And not loaded?
No, sir.
Not much use for self-defense, is it?
No, sir.
If you were in the upper area and you needed a firearm for self-defense, where would you go of the ones you found?
The closest one would be the 6R 1911.
The judge intervenes and showcases his firm attitude towards such cases, asking rhetorical questions to solidify his decision against former Sheriff Knoll in the case.
Mr. Boyles, I'm not going to impose any further sanctions today because it was not certified to me that there was no further firearms. But after today, if there's any further firearms found, there will be additional sanctions. So if your client needs to tell you something, he needs to tell you right now. You need to take a few moments and ask.
I'll be happy to, Your Honor.
Why don't we go off the record so we can speak with his client? I know you have a job to do on behalf of your client, but as I indicated, finding these additional weapons just reinforces my decision. And a matter of fact, I wish I'd have made it longer. So, but I'll stick with the 60. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
We'll be off record. I'm going to reiterate this again. I told Mr. Knoll not to do anything stupid, not to deceive me, not to define me. He would not like the consequences. Didn't seem like he listened the first time. He released, and thus I sentence you to 60 days for contempt.
The judge, in this rehearing of the case, given a further discovery of Knoll's crimes, refuses to give him any forgiveness in light of his ignorance of the justice system.
You know, I'm just a country boy from Washington County with a public school education. But when somebody warns me not to do something, I try to heed that warning because we say what we mean up there. So this is my analysis. With the informations and the affidavits that were filed, it appears that you had, or at least did have, an airplane, a train that was hidden, a stable of exotic motor vehicles, a harem of women, at least 3 mansions, at least $3,000 suits, $800 belts, which you get personally delivered. And still seem to think that the Yuvik Volunteer Fire Department's your personal piggy bank. So with all these luxuries and all the money that you've allegedly taken, I'm thinking about $1.5 million in bond ought to be appropriate. Should be able to post that with no problems with everything that you have. If you don't listen to that, you post it, I don't know where we're going. That's
There's an increase by 1.5 million or the total 1.5?
Oh, do you have that much in the Bank of Wilder over there?
I was just trying to figure out my math over here.
We'll make it 1.5 even.
Thank you.
Shall we hold him till you go get it?
I would say this is Wilder probably would have a question.
In April, Knoll was sentenced to 60 days in jail for violating the terms of his bond. In June, he was charged with 6 new felonies for a total of 31, and a judge raised his bond to $1.5 million. Do you think these cops deserved what they got? Let me know in the comments below. And if you liked the video, subscribe so you can take advantage of the next one we have in store for you right here.
You can't leave people in that position. He's not going to. He's in handcuffs.